Kia ora everyone, so my name's Tim, I'm the General Manager at the Asylum Seekers Support Trust. So we work with asylum seekers and spontaneous refugees. So our client group's quite a small group, but it's a very vulnerable group. So it's people that have come to New Zealand searching for a safe place to call home. So our advocacy type of work we do, so we advocate daily on behalf of our clients. So it'll be at work and income, so advocating for the rights for benefits and support. It could be at the banks to try and open the bank accounts when workers are saying no you can't, we say yes you can, please call head office. IRD numbers, schools, some schools say you can't enrol, yes you're allowed to. So just people not understanding the rights that asylum seekers have. We also try and advocate at a high level for policy change. So with Immigration New Zealand is one of our main things. So trying to work with staff members or the minister, if we can able to visit him, to try and get changes for rights. With work and income in banks, we're trying to find people higher up to make the policy changes so that we don't have to keep arguing case by case basis for people. But the hardest thing we find is struggling to meet the right people who can make those decisions. Getting through to those people can be difficult. They have layers in front of them to stop you. We try and engage other groups to help us with our advocacy work, so like Amnesty International, but it can be hard. Sometimes they have other priorities. You can only work on so many things, so it can be difficult. We work with student groups at Victoria University and just started working for a group at Auckland University, trying to do that advocacy work for us because we don't have the resources to do as much as we'd like. We also work with other groups in our sector, so groups that look after refugees. So a lot of that's asylum seekers have quite a different journey than a quota refugee. So it's just empowering them to know the journey of asylum seekers so that they can understand when they're helping different people. So an example might be English language partners. They get funding to help refugees, but no funding to help asylum seekers. But thankfully they do apply for other grants to help asylum seekers so they understand the journey. So those sort of groups. But that can be quite difficult. It's sort of one of the things that's difficult with asylum seekers. Like we applied to go to a cultural festival to have a stall so we can tell people about what we do if anyone knows any asylum seekers, but they didn't want us there because they don't want to be tainted to be known as asylum seekers. So that's sort of the difficulty that we have. Research, so we're currently trying to work with Auckland University to get some research done, Jay Marlowe. So it's just talking to them all the time. They know where the funding comes from. Can we get some evidence-based research that we can then use to go to government and say, this is the problem, here's the actual research for it, don't just believe us. Because as soon as they hear asylum seeker's name here at a meeting, they kind of know what we're going to be saying. So trying to get some research to back us up. Local government as well, so meet with council staff, trying to get more rights for asylum seekers. We've welcomed the mayor and councillors to dinners, just trying to pass on the story, that sort of work. We also obviously use of media, social media, Facebook and stories and newspaper and articles, trying to get journalists involved to do stories on asylum seekers so people know more about it. And the other thing is speaking opportunities like this, getting out and talking to people about the journey asylum seekers are going through. So the more people that know and understand the difficulties they face, hopefully the changes may start to happen from that. The importance of advocacy in our work. So we get a lot of pleasure from going to WINS. Someone's gone to WINS, they've said, no, you can't get a benefit, you've got no money or you don't qualify for family assistance or there's no rental accommodation supplements. When we can go along and change that, we can say, yes, they're entitled to temporary additional support. So we get a lot of joy from that. But if we could train all of the WINS staff to know this, to know that asylum seekers are entitled to an emergency benefit if they have a visa and a claim letter, to know that, yes, they don't get accommodation supplement, but they're entitled to temporary additional support, which is at the same amount. That would make our job obviously a lot easier. We wouldn't have to spend hours at work and income for each client. The same thing with the bank. So with the AML laws, banks, you need to have a 6-month visa to open a bank account. You can't get a benefit if you don't have a bank account. A lot of our clients only arrive on tourist visas, so they aren't able to. So trying to get that policy change at banks is very difficult. As far as I could get, we got one branch that are willing to help us, which is great for now, but if we can get a policy change at a bank that they will accept a claim letter and an asylum visa, that would be so much easier for everyone all throughout the country. So those sort of things. Immigration. One of the successes we've had dealing with immigration is we've managed to get 6 people released from prison to our hostel. And that's just been built through a personal relationship. You know, we go and meet people and talk to them and how about it. But if we could get a policy change that they didn't have to spend any time in prison, they haven't committed any crime, that would be, again, a lot more successful for our clients. Also, the clients that get released from prison, they only get an allowance of $120 a week to survive on, set up to commit a crime or to have to do something illegal. So just that sort of policy change we find very difficult. Our experience in seeking resources, I must admit, we get funding for my role, and part of my job is advocacy, but we don't get any government funding. Obviously, working with asylum seekers is not politically so enjoyable for some of our government, but we enjoy the role of the funded staff being able to choose sort of how much of my work is advocacy and how much of it is day to day. We know kind of what's going to work. We kind of get a feeling, should I go to these meetings? Should I try and meet with the Minister of Immigration? You know, having that flexibility to be able to choose. I haven't ever done a funding application just on advocacy, but it's something definitely we can have a look at doing. What would help us most? I guess it's knowledge on how to approach, how to make advocacy changes. So for me personally, as I was introduced as an accountant, I can balance the books. I do that first thing in the morning. That's my skills. But coming to try and make a change for MPs, for staff members, how to make a change, how to do a program together, like Emily was talking about this big campaign, you know, over 20 years to make a change. We don't have those skills and knowledge. So being able to access a resource where people could teach us, tell us how to do it, guide us, search us on the right way. I guess the other thing would be, more emphasis on the funding in the area. I guess when we apply for funding and we go, hey, we need some money to help our clients get bank accounts, maybe if there was more emphasis on, yes, but how are you going to, that's great, that'll help them every day, but how are you going to make a change so you don't need to do that? So I guess more emphasis on it when we go for funding, however that would look. Because one of the hardest things, again, I was talking about before, is that prioritising between advocacy work and the day-to-day work. We get a guy released from prison, he doesn't know how to use the bus system, doesn't know how to go shopping, we prioritise looking after him rather than spending the time doing the advocacy work. How can funders best connect with us? Maybe assess, I was thinking funders maybe assess what the important changes are. So we can say, like, we've got 3 issues we're trying to advocate for. It's no asylum seekers kept at criminal prisons. So at the moment, we've locked up 80 asylum seekers in the last 5 years for an average of 166 days, and they don't commit any crime. They just come here to seek asylum. So we want to change that. We want to change that when an asylum seeker is successful, we call them spontaneous refugees, they get a letter in the mail and that's it. Quota refugees get quite a bit of support wrapped around them. Asylum seekers who become refugees get nothing wrapped around them, which makes it very difficult for them to integrate into society, to be able to be the best person they can be. And the third one is some asylum seekers actually get no visa and no income. So they're here in the country waiting for their decision, and they've got no rights to benefit and no rights to work. It's like a starvation type policy is the sort of wording I use that immigration use. You can stay here and wait for our decision, but in the meantime we give you nothing. They're not going to last very long. So those are the sort of things. So if we had a way of we could go to a funder and say, these are the things we want to work on, maybe they have some experience, say, well, that one maybe we'll get some change, that one's something we'd like to get involved in. That would be really helpful. I guess the key message is, I guess what's coming through is that we think the bigger change is made in advocacy. If we can, again, get wins to change their staffing policy, the training, if we can get the banks to change the policy, that makes our life so much easier. We can then concentrate our resources in other places. So we think much bigger changes can happen through advocacy. We're just not really sure how to go on about and do it. Good. Thanks.